All right, so we have our house, it's all painted, and now we're going to start working with other 3D programs using the model from Sketchup. You can see here that I've made some folders that are going to help me stay organized. Output, especially when we go to export something, then we know there's a folder to put it in. It'll help us find it. As you can see, like here's a video and there's a JPEG and it starts to get a little cluttered. That's why I cleaned this one up. I did make a folder for special textures, and then here is the folder where I'm going to put the stuff for Blender. So let me go to my SketchUp file. You can see that the house is centered here, and it's all one group. Very important for that. The other thing that you might consider is just before exporting is taking out the scenes. You'll end up with little dotted lines that go to the different points of view around the house if they're still there. You can ignore them and you can delete them in Blender as well, but it doesn't take too much effort here. If you say show tray and you find them, I can shift click on all of these and simply remove and remove. So now I'm back to just a plain house model here. So let me export this file, export the 3D model. There are lots of different formats for 3D models. First thing I'm going to do, of course, is go to my SketchUp project folder where I'm going to put my Blender stuff. So here is my painted simple house. I'm going to go ahead and put today's date because it's different. And instead of OBJ, I'm picking the Colada DAE. So you got to find this one in order for this to work in Blender. And I'm exporting. And that's it. So it doesn't take long. If it gets stuck there, then you might need to close it and try again. Let me just minimize SketchUp. You will probably need to go back to that house a couple of times in order to get this. So I've got a folder filled with the pictures of the textures that were used in the house and my DAE file. So as I was telling you, you need the newer version of Blender. It actually puts the version number there. If you have this one, it may say new, but this is the one that I think we really want. Now I did go to the Software Center and update that. I'm just going to go with the one I know for sure for this tutorial. So you should see a picture like that, and you just click anywhere except on that picture, and you'll get into the main editor. So here is what we have in the scene that you see on the left. You've got a cube, a camera, and a light, and you can select them right here. So first of all, I'm going to click on the cube and delete it. And then import, file, import, the first one on the list, the Colada file. So I'm going to navigate to my SketchUp project folder and go into Blender so that I can import my DAE file. It'll take just a moment, and there's the house. Now it's a pretty big house, so if I press 0 on my number pad, it actually goes and looks through the camera to see what you can see. This is a wireframe mode, which makes things very, very fast, especially if I had a dozen houses. Then this would let me like move them around and get things organized very quickly. This is the default mode, which is just showing me the surfaces and colors. Those are pretty easy for it to display. This one, and then this is the one where it's fully rendered. It takes into account where the light is and what the reflected light does and everything else. And so we've got a couple other things to change here. One of them, if I zoom out a little bit and hit Control, Alt, and 0, only the 0 on the number pad, wherever I'm looking, it will actually bring the camera to that point. So you can see I'm having some trouble there. I'm going to zoom out, Control, Alt, 0, and now I can see more of the house. If I want to render that real quick, F12 is the quick way to do the rendering. You can also go to render and render an image, and it'll actually show you what the output would be. So first of all, we need to make sure that we don't have all those gray pixels in the background. That's going to make for a very messy render. So I'm going to close this. It's just the render view, and make a couple more changes. First of all, on the render. You can see this little camera here. Those are the render properties. You go down to film and click on the box that says transparent. And now you can see that famous checkerboard pattern that's all around. Another thing we want is a little bit of light in here where this shadow is. That shadow is just way too dark because we just have the one bright light in the system. Now it is possible to move that light around. I can click on it and go to another button you should know here, the properties. So this is where our transform properties are. For things like the light, I can move the light on the x-axis, on the y-axis, and of course the z, up and down. So finding just the right position will still only give you that one light source. So to add a little bit of light in these areas, there is one more thing to do. So we got this world properties right here. We want this world that we're creating to have a little bit of light in the background. And right now that strength of 1 isn't enough. So I'm going to click and drag that to the right. You don't want to overdo it because then you really lose the beauty of the detail. So finding just the right amount to give us a little view in the shadows so we can still see that, yeah, there's still brick and there's a window, but we can also see the shadows being cast. So now if I press F12 to render that one image, we're starting to get a nice looking house here. So there's a few other things, positioning the camera and rotating the house around that we'll do, but this gets it set, except for one more important thing, and that is what I should have done first, saving the file. So when I go to File here, there's one checkbox that is critical, which is automatically pack all the resources like those textures in the Blender file. So I'm going to check that little box before I save it. So File, Save As. It's here in my Blender Sketchup folder. There's Blender. So I'm going to go in here and it's going to save 220126. Painted Simple House. Put your name. And now this is going to be the Blender file that we're going to work in from now on. Clicking Save will now show that to me. Here we have the Blender symbol on our Painted Simple House. So we have moved from SketchUp to a new 3D program where we're going to be able to make some really nice animations with anything that we make in SketchUp.